Has Crimea really returned to Ukraine, or is the internet exaggerating again? Social media is exploding with breaking headlines, viral clips, and bold claims that Ukraine has taken back Crimea. But what actually happened on the ground? In the next few minutes, we'll break down facts, timelines, military realities, and misinformation to reveal the real truth behind the Crimea headlines. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's topic has shocked millions across the world and created confusion across news platforms, social media, and messaging apps. Many people are asking the same question. Has Crimea really returned to Ukraine? Or is this another case of viral misinformation spreading faster than facts? Since 2014, Crimea has been under Russian control, following a controversial referendum that Ukraine and most of the international community rejected. Over the years, Crimea has remained one of the most sensitive flashpoints in global geopolitics. Recently, headlines, trending posts, and short clips have claimed that Ukrainian forces reclaimed Crimea, raised their flag, or forced Russian troops to retreat. These claims sound dramatic and emotionally powerful, but geopolitics is rarely that simple. Wars today are not only fought with weapons, but also with information, narratives, and psychological impact. In this video, we will carefully separate facts from exaggerations, verified developments from speculation, and strategic signals from actual territorial change. Our goal is not to support propaganda from any side, but to explain what truly happened, what did not happen, and why the Crimea question remains unresolved. Understanding this topic is crucial because misinformation can influence public opinion, investor confidence, international diplomacy, and even battlefield morale. So stay with us as we begin this detailed breakdown of the reality behind the claims surrounding Crimea and Ukraine. To understand today's claims, we must first revisit Crimea's background and why it matters so much. Crimea is a strategically located peninsula in the Black Sea, home to the Russian Black Sea Fleet and vital naval infrastructure. In 2014, following political unrest in Ukraine, Russian forces took control of Crimea, and Moscow later annexed it. Ukraine, along with NATO, the United Nations, and most Western countries, declared the annexation illegal. Since then, Crimea has been heavily militarized by Russia, with advanced air defenses, naval assets, and thousands of troops stationed across the region. For Ukraine, reclaiming Crimea is not only about territory but also sovereignty, national identity, and international law. For Russia, losing Crimea would be a massive strategic and symbolic defeat. This is why every explosion, drone strike, or military incident in Crimea instantly becomes global news. Recently, Ukraine increased long-range strikes on Russian military targets, including air bases, ammunition depots, and radar systems in Crimea. These attacks weakened Russian logistics and created the impression of collapsing control. However, weakening infrastructure does not automatically mean territorial takeover. Control of land requires sustained ground presence, administration, and security. This distinction is critical because many viral claims intentionally blur the line between military pressure and actual control. Understanding this context helps explain why headlines can be misleading while reality remains far more complex. So where did the recent claims about Crimea returning to Ukraine come from? The answer lies in a mix of military actions, official statements, and social media amplification. Ukrainian officials have repeatedly stated that Crimea is a legitimate military target, and that Ukraine intends to restore control through long-term pressure. Following successful strikes on key Russian assets, some commentators interpreted these actions as the beginning of liberation. At the same time, social media platforms were flooded with old footage, AI-generated images, miscaptioned videos, and exaggerated translations of official remarks. A damaged base quickly became captured, and a retreating convoy was labeled a complete withdrawal. Algorithms reward emotional content, not accuracy, which allowed these narratives to spread rapidly. Additionally, some international analysts speculated about future scenarios, which were then presented online as confirmed events. This information echo chamber created the illusion that Crimea had already changed hands. In reality, no credible international organization, satellite verification, or independent monitoring group confirmed a transfer of control. Ukraine did succeed in disrupting Russian operations, forcing air defenses into overdrive and making Crimea less secure for Russian forces. But none of these developments equate to sovereignty change. This phase of the conflict is about shaping conditions, not final outcomes. Understanding how narratives form helps viewers avoid being misled by sensational claims that lack factual grounding. Another important factor is the role of psychological and information warfare. Modern conflicts rely heavily on perception management. Ukraine aims to demonstrate capability, resilience, and inevitability, while Russia aims to project control, stability, and deterrence. When Ukraine strikes targets in Crimea, the message is not only military, but psychological. Crimea is not untouchable. Russia, meanwhile, downplays damage and emphasizes defensive success. Social media becomes the battlefield where these competing narratives collide. Influencers, anonymous accounts, and even automated bots amplify selective information to influence global opinion. Some viral posts claiming Crimea's return were likely designed to boost morale or test public reaction. Others were click-driven content exploiting uncertainty. This does not mean all information is false, but it does mean viewers must apply critical thinking. Real territorial change would involve visible governance shifts, border control changes, and international acknowledgement. None of these indicators have occurred. Instead, what we are witnessing is a gradual escalation of pressure designed to reshape future negotiations and military positioning. Psychological momentum can be powerful, but it is not the same as legal or military control. Recognizing this distinction prevents emotional manipulation and allows a clearer understanding of the conflict's real trajectory. From a military standpoint, retaking Crimea would be one of the most complex operations in modern warfare. The peninsula is connected to mainland Ukraine by narrow land routes and heavily defended choke points. Russia has layered defenses, including minefields, trenches, naval patrols, and air superiority systems. Amphibious assaults are risky and resource-intensive, requiring overwhelming force and air dominance. Currently, Ukraine's strategy appears focused on isolation rather than invasion. By targeting supply routes, fuel depots, bridges, and command centers, Ukraine aims to make Crimea increasingly costly to hold. This strategy mirrors historical sieges where defenders lose effectiveness over time. However, isolation is a long process. As of now, Russian administration, law enforcement, and military command structures remain active in Crimea. Civil governance continues under Russian authority, which is a key indicator of control. No Ukrainian civil institutions have been established there. This confirms that Crimea has not returned to Ukraine in practical terms. Military analysts widely agree that any attempt to reclaim Crimea would likely be gradual and accompanied by major international developments. Therefore, claims of sudden liberation ignore the realities of modern warfare and logistics. Understanding these realities helps viewers distinguish between strategic progress and final outcomes. International reactions also provide clarity. If Crimea had truly returned to Ukraine, global responses would be immediate and unmistakable. Emergency United Nations sessions, NATO statements, market reactions, and diplomatic shifts would dominate headlines. Instead, international responses remain cautious and measured. Western leaders continue to support Ukraine's territorial integrity, but avoid confirming any change in Crimea's status. This silence is telling. Intelligence agencies rely on satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and on-ground verification. None have publicly confirmed a Ukrainian takeover. Financial markets, which react sharply to geopolitical shocks, also showed no signals consistent with such a historic event. This reinforces the conclusion that no sovereignty change has occurred. However, international observers do acknowledge Ukraine's growing capability to challenge Russian dominance in Crimea. This has implications for future negotiations, sanctions, and military aid. The world is watching Crimea closely, but watching does not equal witnessing a return. The gap between symbolic success and legal reality remains wide. This distinction is essential for responsible reporting and informed discussion. Overstating developments can damage credibility and create unrealistic expectations. A calm, evidence-based approach offers a clearer picture of where the conflict truly stands today. Let's address the most common myths directly. Myth 1. Ukrainian flags were raised in Crimea. No verified footage supports this claim. Myth 2. Russian troops fully withdrew. There is no evidence of mass withdrawal. Myth 3. Ukraine announced official control. No such declaration has been made. These myths often originate from mistranslations, satire, or deliberate manipulation. In contrast, verified facts show increased Ukrainian strike capability, degraded Russian assets, and rising operational pressure. These are significant developments, but not equivalent to liberation. Another myth suggests secret agreements or undisclosed handovers. Such claims ignore how visible territorial changes are in the modern surveillance age. Nothing of that scale remains hidden. Recognizing myths helps viewers avoid emotional whiplash caused by dramatic but inaccurate headlines. Responsible analysis requires patience, verification, and context. Crimea remains contested in principle, but controlled by Russia in practice. That reality may change in the future, but it has not changed yet. Separating hope from confirmation is essential for understanding complex conflicts without falling into misinformation traps. So why does this confusion persist? The answer lies in audience psychology. People crave decisive moments, clear victories, and dramatic turning points. Algorithms prioritize content that delivers emotional payoff quickly. A headline saying, "Crimea under pressure," performs worse than "Crimea liberated." Content creators, intentionally or not, often choose exaggeration over precision. Additionally, Ongoing conflicts create information fatigue, making audiences more vulnerable to simplified narratives. This environment allows half-truths to flourish. However, history shows that major geopolitical shifts are rarely sudden. They unfold through prolonged pressure, negotiations, and gradual changes. Crimea's future will likely follow this pattern. Understanding the media ecosystem helps viewers consume news more responsibly, asking basic questions like, who confirmed this? And what evidence exists? Can prevent misinformation spread. This awareness empowers audiences rather than manipulating them. In an age of instant information, discernment is a critical skill. Crimea's story is still being written, but it has not reached its final chapter yet. Looking ahead, what are the realistic scenarios for Crimea? One scenario involves continued Ukrainian strikes, gradually weakening Russian control, leading to future negotiations. Another scenario involves prolonged stalemate with Crimea, remaining under Russian administration for years. A third, more dramatic scenario would involve a major military operation, but this would require significant international shifts and resources. None of these scenarios involve an immediate or secret return. Analysts emphasize that timing matters. Political changes, economic pressure, and battlefield developments all interact. Ukraine has made Crimea a central strategic objective, signaling long-term intent rather than short-term headlines. Russia, meanwhile, treats Crimea as non-negotiable. This clash of positions suggests a prolonged contest rather than a sudden resolution. Understanding future possibilities helps contextualize current events without exaggeration. It also explains why responsible outlets avoid definitive language. Crimea remains one of the most complex geopolitical flashpoints of our time, and its outcome will shape regional security for decades. So, has Crimea returned to Ukraine? Based on verified evidence, the answer is no. What has happened is a significant escalation of Ukrainian pressure, increased vulnerability of Russian assets, and a powerful information battle shaping global perception. These developments matter, but they do not equal territorial control. Understanding this distinction protects viewers from misinformation and emotional manipulation. Crimea remains under Russian administration, though its security environment has changed dramatically. The future remains uncertain, and change is possible, but claims of completed return are premature. Staying informed requires patience and critical thinking. As events continue to unfold, clarity will come from verified sources, not viral posts. Our responsibility as viewers is to seek truth over excitement. Thank you for staying with us through this detailed explanation. If you found this breakdown helpful, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with others who want facts over hype. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive analysis.